Jeffrey and the program can both say it. So, well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Northern Lights Center for Spiritual Living. We are a community of people dedicated to using spiritual and practical principles to create lives we want to live. And Northern Lights Center for Spiritual Living offers practical and spiritual tools to make positive changes in our lives. Our promise here is to reveal, inspire, uplift, celebrate, and magnify your greatness. We acknowledge our presence here on the traditional and unceded lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and coastal Salish peoples. These people are still here, and we join with them in how they continue to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. We seek to resist the erasure of Indigenous histories as we work towards honoring and inviting the truth. In a similar fashion, we acknowledge how the labor of enslaved Africans and their descendants who suffered the horrors of transatlantic trafficking, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow brought about so much of what we know in this country today, including our culture, economic growth, and development. We also name the Asian and Chicano people who toiled with little recognition. We are indebted to their labors and sacrifices, and we must acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and resulting impacts that can still be felt and witnessed today. So please join me for our opening song in this very room. Or I'm sorry, Wake Up This Morning. And I don't have a composer for it because I believe it is a traditional folk song or that has been sung for many, many years. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on the spirit. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on the spirit. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on the spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Walking and talking with my mind. Sing on the spirit. I'm walking and talking with my mind. Staying on the spirit. Walking and talking with my mind. Staying on the spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. All day long. All day long, I keep my mind staying on the spirit. Well, all day long, I keep my mind staying on the spirit. All day long, I keep my mind stayed on the spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
I woke up this morning with motorcycles going by.
It's a copyrighted sound, by the way.
Oh, is it?
It is.
Okay, well, I won't use it then. Good morning. Glad to see everybody survived yesterday. And those of you that are here also survived yesterday, so you're here. I'm gonna put this up here so that everybody can hear me because I talk so softly sometimes. Okay, so this is the time we all know that we set aside on Sunday mornings to ground ourselves, to allow ourselves to settle in and just be. And by doing that, I just invite us to take in 3 nice, deep, cleansing breaths. And as we release them, you can be audible and let that sound out. So let us take now one nice deep breath in and release. One more deep breath in and release. And finally, one more deep breath in, holding it, and release. Releasing everything that has come before this very moment. Any worries, woes, frustrations, anxieties. We could put them on the shelf and pick them up later on if we want. Or we can just choose to leave them there. And so this time we're together allowing ourselves just to settle into wherever, if you're sitting, standing, laying down, whatever position, just allow your body to just settle in, to be grounded in this perfect now. Because now is the perfect moment. And now is the perfect moment. And now is the perfect moment. And so today's meditation, I just want you to focus on this phrase and see what comes to you. And the phrase is, I am here on purpose. I am here on purpose. And just allow that to flow through your mind and see what comes up. You don't have to answer any questions. If something comes up and you need to, you can ask for more information. We can always do that. Whenever we're in meditation or contemplation, if something comes up that we don't quite understand, we can ask for more clarity, more understanding. And eventually it will come. And so I am here on purpose. 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 We are here on purpose. We are here on purpose. I am here on purpose. And so I invite you to carry this with you this week, that each of us, I, you, we, are here on purpose. We are here for a reason. And so with that, I invite you to wiggle your toes and fingers, and when you're ready, open your eyes and come back to the room. And so it is. Okay, now we get to go to our declaration. We go through that 3 times. We say it with gusto and meaning and deep feeling. So, we are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And so it is. And our reading today comes from a psalm for the wild built by Becky Chambers. I don't have a purpose any more than a mouse or a slug or a thorn bush does. Why do you have to have one in order to feel content? Nothing has a purpose. The world simply is. You keep asking why your work is not enough, and I don't know how to answer that, because it is enough to exist in the world and marvel at it. You don't need to justify that or earn it. You are allowed just to live. I have wants and ambitions too, but if I fulfill none of them, that's okay, because I know that no matter what, I'm wonderful. And so it is. Short but sweet.
So I wanted to have us have that experience of that song to kind of set the tone for today's talk. The title is, What's the Point? So much of our lives, so much of human history has been about that question. Why are we here? Why do we exist? And Reverend Pamela has frequently described how when she is putting together a talk And then she has Stephanie act as her practitioner, that Stephanie just lands on the very point of her talk and gets it across in a reading in 1 or 2 sentences. That Stephanie has that like magnetic capacity to find what it is that Spirit wanted to have known and finds that. So that reading from that Michael shared, that notion that we can be a bush or a slug or a bird, we could be anything, and we are everything. One of the great notions that Ernest Holmes offered when he started to piece together the Science of Mind teachings is that distinct from what many religious traditions had taught, that God was some distant force that set up creation and then set it spinning on its way and then kind of stood by watching while it all happened. And then maybe heroically stepped in or out or in or out. Ernest Holmes' idea was that all of creation, this moment and this moment, this breath in, this breath out, is all the expression of the divine. That the divine is constantly unfolding and expanding and giving more and more of itself, and that we are all active parts of that divine. That the divine doesn't say, Esther, you get 40% of me. Jeffrey, you get 32% of me. Vaughan, you get 13% of me. That isn't how it works. And yet, because of the way human beings have set up society in our systems, don't we often feel like we are measured or regulated or determined for what we are? This week, a US senator had the unmitigated gall to stand up and speak about how, as a white person, essentially white people have some God-given duty to just be and to be the center of the universe. Now, that's my reframing of what he said, but the content is so close. He's like, you say that it belonged to Native Americans, but they were fighting among themselves, so it really didn't belong to them. It was these people that arrived that lifted it to a new state of height and destiny. And Jeffrey said desecration. And the author of the 1619 project identified how so much of the wealth that accrued in this country came from unpaid Black labor that we then perpetrated and sustained with enslavement. And the notion, for some reason, that folks that were enslaved are somehow less American than folks who arrived here 200 years after they were here. We are living in a system where that's what's being promulgated, where that's what's being promoted, where the US president is like, I don't like the African American Museum at the Smithsonian. I don't like what it has to say. I don't like this exhibit. We all just need to feel good about America because America was always good. I'm sorry, I don't personally agree. that the internment of Japanese people was a good thing. And I think when you go around and look, you're going to find lots of people who will look with some discernment and consider what is good or not good. So today I want to talk about that sense of purpose for us. And the notion that I want us to embrace and consider is that purpose is not just like a single thread that comes to us. That life doesn't just throw out this purpose that's specifically designed for me. And I get to hold this thread that the divine has said, this is yours. You with your 15% of the divine get this one. And Viesta with your 38% of the divine, you get this one. What I want us to play around with and consider and think about is that just as life changes from moment to moment to moment. I mean, many of us live in the Pacific Northwest. We may notice that the weather can change very quickly. The daytime can start one way. 30 minutes later, it can look another way. And living here in the Seattle area, we can find that what's happening in Stephanie's neighborhood is not what's happening in my neighborhood. It's not what's happening in Jeffrey's neighborhood. It's not what's happening in Phyllis's neighborhood. We are living in a world that is constantly engaged in all kinds of different things. And when all of these different things are going on, how can we entertain the idea that there's just one purpose? So that's the question. That's a thing to consider. Let's deepen our understanding about our worth. Because so often we think that our worth is reliant on the fulfillment of our purpose. Did I get through all of the things on my to-do list? Did I mark everything off? And if I didn't mark everything off, am I a failure for that day? That's what gets insisted to us. Now, I don't know about you, but I know for me, if I got all of my homework done as a little kid, then I was a good student. If I failed to get some of my homework done, I was not as good a student. I was the most anxious student you could find in the universe. Oops, see, I don't know how that happened. I was the most anxious student. I would hear about an assignment, and once we got an encyclopedia set, I had to go home and I had to look up everything in the encyclopedia to make sure that I really understood it. And I don't know how many of you have been real encyclopedia diggers, but I'd go through the article and then there would be 7 other references. So by the end of my afternoon, I would have every single book of the encyclopedia out surrounding me on the floor because I needed to look at every single one. And again, I say that because I don't know that there are that many, maybe there aren't that many here that would have done that. But I say this because that was my driving sense of purpose when I was in grade school. It was about achievement. It was about mastery. It was about learning. But if we go back a little bit, when kids are very, very little, the biggest thing about achievement is just being seen. One of the ways to raise children successfully is that they see themselves reflected back. That they learn that they're not alone. That they learn that they're part of this world and that the world appreciates them. But it isn't about being seen and appreciated. It's just about being noticed. Again, I should have had a video of this, but have anybody ever watched how a baby laughing can trigger another baby laughing? And they don't have to have told a joke. They don't have to have said anything. There's just this eruption of giggling, and it's like a contagion. And this is a place of purpose at that developmental stage. How many times? I know that Michael all of a sudden can see something on Facebook, or I don't know what the other one is, Blue Sky. He can see something there and he can just start giggling. He can just start laughing. Purpose shifts moment to moment to moment. And one of my invitations is to let go of the social imperative that we have one purpose to hold and guide us. And I suggest this because that notion that there's just one purpose is to cut ourselves away from so much life and vitality. One of the things that Ernest Holmes proposed with the Science of Mind teaching was that there are so many names for the divine. And that how we name and address and put ourselves in the presence of the divine can shift. And with that shift, there can be a whole different experience. There may be times when the mere access to beauty suddenly up-levels us. It puts us in a state of mind and heart that is completely transformed. One of the things that I've always found very evocative of the divine is I could be driving along and suddenly, or walking along and suddenly see Mount Rainier. And as many people in the Pacific Northwest know, Mount Rainier is not always visible. So when it's not visible, does that mean that it's gone away? But that's often how we think of the divine. That's often how we think of life. When we don't see it, we're like, was that real? Or was I just fooling myself? I gotta see it to believe it. And what I would say about seeing Mount Rainier is that it's a reminder about the shifting nature of how the divine shows up. I see Mount Rainier, and it will capture the entire vista. Everything else seems to pale. And yet, when it's not there, maybe there's something else that's filling the vista. Michael had planted these sunflower plants. And this particular year, they were very methodical. They were very slowly growing. However, at this point, they are all these big explosions of yellow. Bright, following the sun. And as they are growing, they get heavier and heavier with the weight of the seeds. Now, I describe the sunflowers because human beings, we can go through the same process. We can look at ourselves like sunflowers and say, I'm not very good today. I'm not very good today. I don't know what I did. I could have done more. I wish I had done this differently. If only I had done that differently. When we're like that, we have caught society's judging qualities. And an invitation is to just notice. And as many of you here know, I love when Bob Newhart performed the role of a psychiatrist, and he had a patient come to him and he said, you know, I work for somebody, it's $4 for all of the time, and you'll only need to see me the once, but you need to pay at the beginning. Well, what if I don't have $4? I don't give change. So tell me what it is. I'm afraid that I will be enclosed in a box. Oh, okay. Have you ever been enclosed in a box? No. But when I go in my room, I feel like I'm being enclosed in a box. And he said, well, so here's the process. It's very simple. Stop it. But when I get in a car, I said, what you're going to do is you're going to stop it. But doctor, you don't know how I worry about these. Stop it. We are in a position to take that executive director order, the way Bob Newhart played it as that psychiatrist, and just tell ourselves, stop it. I want us to look at three things today. We're going to look at first how each of us decide our purposes. We're going to look at how the purpose of life is simply living. And we're going to look at how being alive is the source of our value. So, what if we play with the notion that the reason we're alive is to just live? To strip away everything else, to wake up and just be alive. About from us. They wanted us to reach a certain level. What if just being alive is enough? The divine is giving life moment by moment by moment. What if we look at this moment and this moment and this moment as the gifts that they are? So often we can feel burdened by life. We can feel like, oh, what should I be doing? Shouldn't I be doing more? And it's certainly easy to feel that way. We're living in times where so many things are happening. Like I said, we have that senator who's just like, oh, I come from white people, and white people really brought everything there is to this country, and I'm just so blessed that I'm white. And no one else can come and be as white as I am. you know, it triggers me. It triggers me. And, you know, part of what I can do is I can just say, look at that white racist. And what do I do that enforces what that white racist has to say? Or do I call it out? Do I say, oh, that's just so ignorant? That person just fails to look at the vast scope of how humanity shows up. That person fails to recognize, to see, to celebrate, to embrace, to glorify, to magnify how much we have. I'm sorry, white people didn't come up with the notion of zero. That came from the Arabian mathematicians. So what's the big deal about zero? Zero means a lot. If we were to have calculations without the number zero, things would be very different. I say that just as one of the so many examples of things that are put together. Michael was watching Ocean's 8 yesterday, and it's the story of a family member who has taken up her family yoke and just is really good at coming up with big schemes to steal things. And at one point in the movie, they're gathering their tribe, the people who are going to be part of their plan. And they go to this woman's fashion show, and she reads a review, and she's like, you know, just saying, the Eskimos put their old people out on an ice float when they're too old. Just saying. Sometimes that's the way I feel about some of our political figures. Can't we just put them out on an ice float? Just saying. Do we choose to be adding more good to the world? To be creating a world that is more expansive, that is more loving, that it has more recognition, that expands value rather than devalues? The invitation, the purpose of life is living, to live in a place of awe for all that is beautiful and powerful and inspiring. And when these other things come past our path, to resist. I don't know how many of you know the story of the Pied Piper. The Pied Piper came to this town which was just plagued by rats. And he's like, I can get rid of all the rats, and you just have to pay me this. They're like, sure, we'll do it. All the rats are gone. And they're like, oh, well, they would have gone on their own, so we're not paying you. And the Pied Piper's like, well, I'm going to take a fee anyhow. So he's like, and all of the children follow the Pied Piper. You know, so the idea is that the Pied Piper is the villain of the story. But the other side of it is actually the people didn't live up to their word. The people had made a promise, had made a commitment. How much are we sticking with our commitment? So what if the purpose of life is living, and it's living the best possible way that we can live? Now, the second thing I want to talk about is that we can each decide on our purpose. Jeffrey is a great example of this for me. Jeffrey is like, today I'm going to fix this for this person. Today I'm going to fix this for this person. I'm going to fix this. And these thises are always something very, very different. Now, Stephanie is a great example of deciding. So Stephanie has created how many different amazing outfits and costumes and expressions. It isn't that there's just one. It's that this is multiplicity. She's always deciding. She's always coming up with new purposes. Fiesta's fruit platter yesterday was a coming together. And not only was it the flavors, it was the look of it. She was so intentional about how it looked, about how everything was placed. I mean, it was just like, I want to dive into this. We get to decide our purpose. And we get to decide not only on a daily basis, but a moment by moment basis. I want to remind you of something that was written years ago by Ralph Waldo Emerson. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. He may as well concern himself with his shadow on the wall. Speak what you think now in hard words, and tomorrow, speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again. Though it contradicts everything you had to say today. So you'll be sure to be misunderstood. Is it so bad then to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood. To be great is to be misunderstood. So to think for a moment, how often is the divine misunderstood? How often is the divine compartmentalized and cut off and cut away? That senator to whom I was referring to, white people are the only ones that contribute to society. I heard the same argument from my ex-father-in-law years ago about how white people were the only one who have brought heights to society. This is not a new idea. This is a very old, outdated, stupid, ignorant idea. And yet people speak it as if it's a brand new rallying call. We get to decide to speak the hard words. This is nonsense. If I follow that, I am choosing to be moronic at my best. If I follow that, and if I advance that argument, so another element is like, when we think that there's just one purpose and there's just one choice, and we go and do a different thing the following day, we are cutting ourselves off. Each decision, each discovery gives an expression for more of the divine, for greater knowledge, for greater self-expression. Our explorations are means through which that which created all of creation is getting to know itself in this, down this pathway. Down this pathway. Remember, what we call mistakes and failures are simply points for a new starting place. Many of us know that Thomas Edison tried all kinds of ways to make a light bulb. Thomas Edison had many, these didn't work. A lot of famous people have had many things that didn't work. Tom Cruise, Lucille Ball. These are people who didn't just come out the gate earning the highest awards, being respected and being celebrated. They encountered difficulties. And those difficulties enforced who they became. Take a moment now and just consider something that you have previously called a failure. And allow yourself to see the seed that it planted. To see the doors that it opened. To see the possibilities that germinated and that have led to unanticipated, at the time, delights. So just follow that failing to its delightful outcome. To that difference that never would have happened if you hadn't followed that path. Now, the third thing I want to talk about is that just existing gives us value and worth. So many of us have been taught that to be valuable, we have to do certain things. We have to be certain things. We have to live up to certain things. We have to accomplish certain things. What I want us to consider is that this breath now, the fact that life is giving us the capacity to breathe and to live, imbues us with absolute worth. We've been sold a bill of goods that are only worthwhile if X, Y, and Z. I'm just giving us the invitation in the same way that we can decide. We can make different choices. We can make different choices about what the social directives mean to us. So do I embrace them? Mwah! Oh, you're so right. You're so perfect. You're so good. Or do we say, I am kicking you to the curb. You are out of here. I will quote the idea, get behind me, Satan. You want to tell me how to be, where to go, what to do, what makes me me? No. I quite honestly, I think one of the things that is so evocative about what it is that's happening in our country today. The idea that we are bringing in this ICE force. I think it's very evocative because it's like it's just such a huge presentation of the stupidest ideas all gathered into one. And I think it's very easy for so many people in this country to just say, this is just stupid. I mean, the other day, Michael was sharing how 500 workers were pulled out of a plant. Pulled out of a plant. You know, these were, Koreans who were brought over because of their expertise in the battery technology. Oh, we cut up all of these Koreans. These people are clueless about what is going to make America great again. Again, I'm sorry, greatness is not founded on this white skin. We simply get to value life for itself. Simply being makes us worthy of love, worthy of respect. Our existence is our passage. It's our ticket to greatness. So I wanted to conclude, we've got those ideas, the three things that living itself is the point of living is living. The point of life is living. Second, we each get to decide our purpose moment to moment. That purpose is this fluid, changing, adapting thing. And that to think otherwise is to miss out on all of the ways purposes can show up. And that finally, our value comes from simply being alive. So with that, I've got two tasks. I have two calls to action, or as Stephanie has taught us all, there's life work. Each day started off, what is my purpose right now? Wake up, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? And 10 o'clock comes around and you're like, oh, what I thought it was, it's not that. Oh, then change it. You don't have to be like the hobgoblin of little minds with, but I thought my purpose was this. Okay, that's what it was when I got up, but that was before I met Katie Sue. That was before I found this situation. That was before I heard this story. That was before I learned about this. Keep coming back to the question, what is my purpose right now? All of our life, the emotions, the experiences, the things that are being fed to us, the things that we are feeding to life, all of that informs our purpose. Maybe our purpose today seems to just be present to a loved one. That might be more than enough. Michael makes a point of calling his friend Louise every day. And the phone call can be, the television is not set at the right volume. But it's just listening to her talk about that gives her a space to be heard. That he's genuinely listening to it, as opposed to the people there that are like, she never likes the volume. But he's not judging it. How it is we engage with life differs moment to moment to moment. And just be receptive to what it is that life has to offer. When I hear about a stupid senator making a stupid statement, I'm going to call it out as stupid. And we're going to say, I am not following along with that claim. Because it's an invalid claim, and I'm going to invalidate it when I hear it. I'm going to call it for what it is. prejudice, racist drivel. Second thing to do, look at our choices and how they let us express ourselves. Is this choice bringing a greater expanse, greater love, greater opportunity for expression? Is this creating a world that works for everyone, or is this a choice that's cutting off people? How are my choices creating this world? And I can assess, oh, I don't like how that choice is going. I guess I can let go of that choice. I thought it was the right choice. Oops, I was wrong. Oops, it wasn't the way I wanted to go. How often do people like hang on to their choice and they re-justify it and they're like, oh, this was the only choice I could have made. You won't see me ever letting go of this choice. And you know, maybe I'm just particularly nasty, but I just want to slap him and say, that's not the only choice. It's all you could do. No, it's not. You can make a different choice right this second. Yes. As Bob Newhart's character said, stop it. And I might say to myself, stop it. I was a queer little one who grew up with all kinds of stories about how because I was equipped a certain way, I had to marry a certain way and life had to unfold a certain way. And I guess kind of like, you know, those little penguins that are all following each other, or the little lemmings that are, you know, heading off a cliff. I was perfectly happy to head off a cliff. And I head off the cliff. I married someone who was actually also not a straight person. And we were two together, happy enough, but not really happy. We got to make different choices. Be willing to look at our choices and reconsider them. So I have an affirmation for us, and then we'll close with a song. The affirmation is fairly simple. I am worthy because I am. This almost sounds like a Popeye thing. I am worthy because I am. So join me. I am worthy.